Tyres are really important to how your bike rides. I know we talk about this all the time. There's so many different things. There's different treads, compounds, constructions, widths. It's a really complicated balance that really does affect how your bike handles. Not to mention, they can be really pricey. A good set of tyres can set you back a lot of money, but here's some ways to get the most out of your tyres. Tyre choice and then setup are probably the most important things when it comes to getting the most out of the tyres. Really, it's kind of trying to pick the right sort of tyre. You know, if you're racing downhill, then you're going to go for a dual ply, big, heavy construction tyre with a lot of grip. But it can be really confusing because there's so many different tyre brands out there. Different brands offer 10 different options as well. So it's trying to learn what you need from a tyre. Like I said, enduro downhill, you're looking for grip, tough tyres. Cross country, of course, lightweight tyres. Do you feel like you want a really good rubber on the side, these big side knobs to dig in on the corners? Depends on the trails as well. So you really need to sort of dig into the tyre manufacturers' websites, look at what they're recommending their tyres for and try and pick the right ones for you. People often tend to then stick with that same tyre, and that's not a bad thing to do. At least it becomes predictable for you. Then it's getting it set up, so trying to find the correct pressures for your style of riding and again, your trails. I've found that I've definitely come down on my pressures a bit in the last few years, from running sort of 28 in the front and 30 on the rear in my sort of enduro downhill racing days. I'm down to sort of mid-20s front and back. Tyre constructions definitely have improved. I've slowed down a bit as well, I will admit that. So I'm asking less of the tyre. I'm not thrashing it quite as hard through rocks and stuff, so I know that I can run those lower pressures, get that extra bit of sort of deformity, a bit more grip, bit of a less harsh ride, and I can get away with not pinching or damaging those tyres. I think running lower pressures is good, but there's a point where you'll sort of stop getting away with it. If you run too low, you'll start eventually what I call rimming out. So you start hitting rocks and obstacles and you'll feel obstacle hit the rim. So if you've got tubes, you'll probably pinch it, but also eventually you'll damage your tyres. You'll put little holes in them or even rip them and start damaging your rim as well. The other reason as well is if I have my tyres too low, if I then start riding like hard packed trails with berms, somewhere where you're really compressing the tyre, eventually you'll make it squirm. And I've seen that happen quite a lot of times where people running low pressures get out of control and they hit something and they would have probably saved it, but the tyre squirms, even burps, and they crash, it causes them to crash. So that's the other thing, too low and you will start burping tubeless tyres where the tyre pulls so far, eventually the bead will break and some air will come out. Tubeless, I definitely think is the way to go for almost every mountain bikers. You get rid completely of those little punches from thorns, the sealant just deals with those, and also snake bites, you just don't pinch tube anymore. Yes, you can damage your tyre as a bit like a snake bite where you'll put a hole in it, but it doesn't happen anywhere near as much as puncturing a tube. I know the weight difference isn't massive. By the time you've taken the tube out and you've added tape, sealant and the valve, it's not massive, but it does feel like a lighter ride to me. I am running a tube in this rear tyre actually because I ripped this tyre back in hard rock, and actually yesterday riding up a rock face I pulled out the plug and I haven't got any more sealant, I forgot to bring it, so I've had to put a tube in, and now riding really rocky trails I just know that I've got to be careful, and I've bumped my pressures way up again to like 30 plus, just so I know I will pinch that tube. There's definitely an argument for some riders to also look at using inserts. If you're a heavy or an aggressive rider or you're tearing tyres quite a lot, then think about getting some inserts. There's also some riding characteristics to them that are really good, so they will dampen a lot of those tiny little bumps on the trail. Some of them are kind of tunable, so you can tune the air pressure in there. So it definitely does change the way your bike rides and makes your suspension feel better as well. But for some riders, the offset of the weight just isn't worth it. I have used some with success at some races like the Andes Pacifico. For that Everest descending I did in my downhill bike, it was really nice to have that extra sort of puncture resistance and that damping. But actually day to day, I don't use them that often. A great way of getting the most out of your tyres is railing every corner like there's no tomorrow. Because when was the last time you actually wore out the side shred of your tyre before the middle? Well, it doesn't really happen, does it? Because you just spend so much more time on the middle and actually using it for braking all the time as well. But in the past, I've used a worn out tyre on the back and I've just cut the middle tread with some side cutters, just so you know, it looks all, you know, manky and horrible. Eventually you chop them off and you'll get some nice edges on there. The side tread's probably still okay. Then you get some nice, low, semi-slick tread in the middle to be super fast for summertime riding. You could also get a set of summer and winter tyres. You'll get the best performance and they should last longer being used in the right conditions. Again, get your tyre pressure right. Too hard and they'll ride like crap, as well as just pinging off everything and actually not rolling as well, as they don't deform around the bumps on the trail. Turning hard and compressing will test a tyre to its limits, and you won't be able to make a tyre do what it doesn't want to do, so that's where it's really important to get the right type of tyre. A fast rolling cross-country tyre is never going to dig into this ground with its low profile fast rolling tread like a downhill or enduro tyre with its big deep tread that will dig in and get the most amount of grip. Tyre websites usually have loads of good info before you buy a tyre to let you know what it's designed for. To really get the most life out of your tyres, you need some mechanical sympathy. Skids, shroudpin, all good fun, but of course it ruins tyres. But also, as well as finding the limits of your tyre's grip, I learned to find the limits of its construction. So the way I kill tyres the most is by trying to ride technical stuff like this, super rough stuff, and I try and bomb through it fast. That is where I do rip tyres. So that's why I need to learn really the limit of the tyre I've got on. If I was riding down here on cross-country tyres, I would just have to back off the speed. But picking good lines and a bit of unweighting is really gonna help me save my tyres through this type of terrain. Don't just throw a damaged tyre in the bin. If you've got some small holes in there, just add in more sealant. Sometimes just does a job for you. Bear in mind that not all sealant is equal. I like the thicker stuff. It's a bit messier, but it does a really good job of sealing those holes. You can fix ripped tyres as well with an internal patch. I've even seen some people stitch their tyres back together. If it's a really big rip, they'll stitch them together. You may have to compromise and use a tube in there. It might not be properly sealable with sealant, but it's better than just throwing away your tyre and stumping up for a new one. Also, I've said this a few times in other videos, but I like rotating my tyres. My rear tyre is definitely starting to look a bit more worn out. So I'll stick one new tyre, but put it on the front and swap my front tyres to the back. A bit of recycling. There's a few tips on how to get the most from your tyres. Learn how to look after them a bit occasionally. Fix them if they're ripped. Give them death sometimes and ride them until they're completely dead as well. Let us know in the comments down below, what is your favourite tyre? That'd be quite interesting. Give us a thumbs up if you like killing tyres.